Hi everyone. In this episode, I have a very special guest that I'm going to talk with. He is a native speaker of English from Australia, now lives in Indonesia. He is also a teacher of English and Indonesian language. And in this video, he'll be answering the most frequently asked questions about English learning. How can you boost your confidence when you speak English? How can you improve your vocabulary? How to overcome fear when you speak English? How if the environment doesn't support you to speak English? And so on and so on. Get all of the answers by watching the entire video. This is Mr. Hugh
Yeah.
Elliot, aka Mr. Mangus. So
Okay.
welcome, Mr. Mangus,
Hey,
to my show.
Assalamualaikum. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mr. Mangus, I'm really excited to have you here. And so thank you for taking your time to talk to me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I often see your shares on social media, and I like your
Oh,
work.
really?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I like your style of interviewing.
Uh, Thank you, thank you. So, Mr. Mangus, I know you are also active on social media and you have a lot of followers. Okay, but for those people who don't know you, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure, sure. So I go by a few names. Mr. Mangus is my social media name, but my original name is Hugh, and my Muslim name is Farooq, and so people call me
Farooq.
different things. Yeah. I've been coming to Indonesia for around 20 years, and
Wow,
yeah, and
it's
my
quite a long time.
yes, yes, long enough, long enough. Well, it's an easy place to come to. The people are very friendly, so why not?
So let's talk a little bit about yourself first,
hmm
Mr. Mangus, because maybe people want to know more about you. So, um, why did you move to Indonesia, and how do you like it here?
Yeah, well, I was coming to Indonesia many times for different reasons. Um, the first
Mm-hmm.
was because we had a family company here, so that's why I was coming here when I was a lot younger.
Ah.
Yeah, and after
Mm-hmm.
that, I just kept coming back to see my friends because I made a lot of Indonesian friends when I was first here, and I missed them and I
Mm-hmm.
missed Indonesia. So when I had holidays, I used to pay for my own tickets and come and visit all my friends.
All right. So, where do you live right now?
I live in Depok.
Depok.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I've lived here since 2007 in Depok.
And you are married, right? And you have one kid.
Yeah, that's right. I have a boy,
A
and he speaks
boy.
Indonesian and English. We speak both languages with him.
And also, surprisingly, his wife is from Sunda. So,
Yeah, yeah, she's
I guess
Sundanese.
you speak a little Sundanese as well,
Yeah,
right?
Seitik Lai.
Setik.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay.
I know like Kumaha
So,
Damang and what else do I know?
damang,
Yeah,
damang.
Damang. Yeah, different phrases. Just a few.
Istri kawit di mana istri?
Majalengka.
Majalengka. Oh.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
It's near my hometown. My
Kuningan.
hometown
Yeah,
is
yeah, I
in
know.
Kuningan.
On the
Yeah,
on the other
right.
side of the hill. Yeah. I
Yeah, yeah,
explored
yeah.
I explored that mountain range uh,
Ah,
near.
Ciremai.
Yeah, it's very nice. I
Yeah, yeah.
like that area a lot. You're very lucky people who live in that area. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
as good as Punjak. It's just as good as Punjak for me, but there's no traffic.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
great. Yeah.
So, Mr. Mangus, today we're going to talk about English learning, English
hmm
tips. I know you are also teaching English for Indonesian, maybe
Yeah, for
Indonesian
people
people
from all around the world. Yeah.
all around the world,
Mm.
and also you teach Indonesian for foreign people,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. For expats and for Australians who are learning it as a second language, like in school, high school.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you teach online or is there any offline teaching that you do?
Nowadays it's of course all online. PSBB. You have to
I
keep your
see.
distance, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
Mm.
So, which one do you enjoy the most, teaching Indonesian or English?
Both are fine. Both are good. But it's nice to have a
Yeah.
variety. Um, if you have enough variety in the levels you teach, the ages you teach, the languages you teach, then you can
Mm.
enjoy. It doesn't feel like working. Um, so yeah, I like having the change of teaching Indonesian. But of course, I
Okay.
still enjoy teaching English as well.
So for those people who learn Indonesia, where are they coming from mostly?
I have some students from anywhere really: America, England, Australia.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
English-speaking countries.
And why do they want to learn bahasa Indonesia?
Some of them are expats. The ones who come from outside Australia are usually expats,
Hmm.
and the ones in
Hmm.
Australia sometimes because they often go on holiday to Bali or Jogja, for example.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, and also I've heard that Indonesian language is also popular in Australia, right?
Yes, of course. It's just like Spanish language is popular in America because the
Ah, I
USA
see.
is close to Spanish-speaking countries, and Australia is very close to Indonesia. So of course, it's a great idea to
Yeah,
learn
that's right.
Indonesian. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Mr. Mangas, actually, I have a few questions with me, and these are the most frequently asked questions that people have when it comes to English.
Okay, great.
So the first question is that they say, "I'm afraid of speaking to native speaker because my pronunciation is bad."
Hmm.
So what would you say?
Um, well, when they don't understand you, they will probably ask you. Okay, so if you make a mistake in pronunciation, they will probably ask you, like, what do you mean? And maybe you will go back and forth with that word until you get it right. And that happens in conversation, that happens. Even occasionally, it may happen between native speakers. So maybe you have somebody with a particular American accent and they're talking to somebody from a
Hmm.
certain area of England. And every now and then they will have to
Hmm.
ask each other, what do you mean? What is that word? Because the accent will be unfamiliar. So don't worry about it. I mean, native speakers have that happen to each other, and it happens also
Hmm.
between English learners and native speakers. So if you do make a mistake, it's not a big deal. If you make a funny mistake, like maybe I don't
Hmm.
know, you get the pronunciation for sheet wrong,
Hmm.
or the
Yeah, yeah.
pronunciation for beach wrong, and it ends
Mm.
up being how we say it, a naughty word. Well, then you can have a bit of a laugh about it if they notice. You
Yeah,
can have
yeah,
a bit
yeah.
of a laugh, and then who cares? You will get it. You will get it right eventually.
So, and again, oftentimes native speaker will not judge your English, right? Because they focus on the communication.
Yeah, many of them will think that you're amazing for being able to speak a second language because most
Hmm.
English native speakers don't know a second language. They only know English.
Hmm.
So in that case, I'm a bit rare for native English speakers because I know a second language, but most don't. So just you
Hmm.
coming and speaking English to them, most will already appreciate that you spent the effort to learn English.
Yeah, it's really
Usually the
clear to
critical
me.
ones, usually the critical ones are the language learners themselves. So your friends who can also speak a little bit of English, they're the ones who are going to make
Hmm.
fun of you and say, "Oh, you got this wrong, you got that wrong," ah, and then they will call you some names. This comes from learners themselves, but native speakers
Yeah,
will
yeah,
very
yeah,
rarely do this, almost never.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and that's the problem. problem. All right. And the second question is that my accent is bad. I'm afraid of making mistakes, and I don't want to be judged by other people about my English. So it's maybe about accent, right?
Yeah,
So what would you say?
most people find accents interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
when I go back to Australia, I've been living overseas as an expat for a very long time. And so my
Mm-hmm.
accent has, we call it like a colonial twinge. So it has a
Mm-hmm.
different, slightly different tune to people who have always lived in the same area their whole life. So when I come back, people will guess. They say, "Oh, where's your accent from?" And they find it very
Mm-hmm.
interesting that I have an accent. And if I go to America or the UK, they will also be
Mm-hmm.
very excited about my accent. And accent's just something fun, all right? So if you have like
Mm-hmm.
a thick Javanese accent, would be even more
Mm-hmm.
interesting than a normal Indonesian accent because that is really quite different and quite unique. And it sounds
It
almost,
shows
yeah,
your identity, right?
yeah, it sounds almost musical. So you're bound to get a lot of people asking if you had a thick Javanese accent when you spoke English and you went to Australia, you would have a lot of people very interested. Where's your accent from?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where do you come from? Yeah. If you only had a slight accent, it would be less interesting. So don't be ashamed of your
Yeah.
accent. Yeah. Just try to get your pronunciation more or less correct and don't be too ashamed of your accent.
So that means it's okay to have our own accent, right?
Yeah, that's
But
fine. That's
maybe
fine.
uh, what people confuse about is the difference between accent and pronunciation, right? What
Uh-huh.
is accent and what is pronunciation? Because I
Yeah.
think we have to pronounce words well, right?
Yeah. You
And
have to
so,
pronounce words that are acceptable. So what is acceptable pronunciation? It is pronunciation that when you say that word, people don't have to think about what word you're trying to say.
hmm,
Okay, so
yeah,
if I wanted to say water or
hmm,
water or water,
hmm,
you understand what I'm saying, right? These three words.
yeah,
Different accent, slightly different pronunciation, but all of them are okay. Right? So you need to approximate and get something as close to what is acceptable. And if, for example, for
hmm,
one word you use American pronunciation, and for another word, for some reason, you use British pronunciation, it's not a big deal
hmm,
as long as people can understand you when you speak. And if you want to get everything perfectly British, received pronunciation, or everything perfectly
hmm.
like a New York accent, then that's okay also. Everybody has their own taste. And I wish you the best of luck to do that because it's something that is an extra challenge when you're learning language if you want to approximate a particular accent.
Do you have any tips on how to improve our pronunciation and maybe native accent?
Sure, sure. Well, there's some basic things you can do, and there's some more advanced things that you can do. The basic thing that you can do is simply record yourself reading, for
Hmm.
example, a movie script. Advanced technique would be to
Hmm.
learn phonetics, to learn the phonetic system. So there is a what we call the IPA, which is a
Yeah.
phonetic alphabet, and you can learn
Hmm.
which position of your mouth, your tongue,
Hmm.
and your mouth needs to be in, and your voice box when you make each sound. And if you're really serious about accents and you want to get it 100%, you can take that approach if you want. But you don't need to do that. Like 99% of learners don't need to learn the IPA. It's only something extra that is helpful if you
Yeah.
want to do it. Yeah.